Yo, 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 welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros Podcast. I'm just Darcy.
And this is Big Geek Umar. How you doing, bro?
It is a week. It has been a week.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's one of those weeks where new content comes out and we watch that content. And then we come here to talk about that content. And I am overemphasizing this point because of the content that we have watched this week. And there's been some good ones. And
Let's just say there's been a variety of quality within the content.
variety, yes, that's what we all want. Variety. We do love variety. Everybody loves a bag of trail mix with some, raw chicken thrown amongst it.
Yes, sometimes raw chicken, other times hopefully barely cooked, and other times we have a proper meal.
Absolutely, and that is the variety that we get sometimes. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So, yes, as our title has suggested, and as we are very dramatically preparing our conversation, we have watched initial episodes of the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sorry, the Netflix live-action adaptation of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. Now, for those of you who don't know, Avatar: The Last Airbender came out in like 2005. It was and is a incredibly beloved animated series. The demographic was like 6 to 12-year-olds, and ended up having the demographic of like 18 to 37 year olds, and also it had a resurgence, ironically, during COVID when it was on Netflix. People were really depressed. They started watching this, and the next thing you know, they're like, I'm in love, and the world isn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as someone who fell in love with it back in 2005, and also loved it since then, and then was very much enjoying the renaissance it went through during 2018. Now the 2024 live-action Netflix adaptation has come out, and we have talked a lot about this before it came out, throughout the last year and a half, I want to say, on this podcast. And so the series has dropped as of Thursday, and I've watched the first 2 episodes. Darcy, how many episodes have you seen?
I am halfway through the 3rd episode. I have not binged this the whole thing. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I don't think you. Well, I am not able to binge it as I'm watching it with my partner, and we can only watch so much at one time in a day. So, the curse of working in adult life. Anyway, so we are going to give our spoiler-free initial reactions to the first 2 and a bit episodes of season 1, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, just a bit of like background information. This is the showrunner is Albert Kim, and it has this series has a lot of very new people on board, but we do have some big names. We have Paul Sung-Hyung Lee, who is playing Uncle Iroh, who is our beloved Appa from Kim's Convenience. We have Ken Leung, who has been in many things, including Lost and so on and so forth, as playing as Commander Zhao. And we have the incredibly cut and shredded Daniel Dae Kim playing Fire Lord Ozai, who is very much front and center. So far in the Avatar first season compared to what he was in the first one. He was just being referenced, and he was like a shadow of a man.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else this is pretty much, you can tell, their first show. And
first time acting. I mean, first Netflix show.
First Netflix show. So anyway, I'm sure I'm not hiding my thoughts about this series, but I will say I am very interested to hear what my bro has to say about this. So Darcy, what are your initial spoiler-free thoughts? And we just in time, our bro Tactix is in the house. Welcome, Tactix. I do have a question before we jump back to Darcy. Tactics, have you watched any and all or anything of? So nothing. Okay, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting.
This will be our sales pitch in which direction it goes.
I don't know. Yeah, sales pitch as it's going to be like.
Hey, I could tell you to watch it. I could tell you to not watch it.
That's fair. All right. So Darcy, let's start it off. Like, what were your spoiler-free initial reactions to the first couple episodes?
Well, I will say that how do I put this? You had more enthusiasm for Tactix showing up to this show than I have for this show.
T, if I ever have the same amount of reaction as I do for the Avatar series to you, bro, like we got beef and we got to squash it.
Or we have the best show we've ever seen in our life. Either way, it's on the pendulum. So I will say there's two main pillars of what I feel so far.
Okay.
One, I was right. And two, you guys were also right about something. Okay. So let me start with I'm right, because why not? So it is visually really on point. It has moments that feel really good and reminiscent, and I'm like, yeah, that I remember that. They don't last long, and they are spread out. Because there are scenes, like I'm sorry, I'm a touch of a spoiler line.
All right.
There's just like a fight. They introduce Jet, okay, and the team. And there's a question of, who are you guys? And it was a moment where there was like, we're the good guys. And the way it was said, I was just like, I can't with it. It's just not the vibe. And for those who are listening on the podcast, I just fell back in my chair. That's all. I fell back in my chair. I couldn't do it with it. However, the choice that they made some pretty good choices. I actually like how they open the show. They open with something from the past. I'm trying to be non-spoiler here. Mm-hmm. Something from the past, and they bring it. It's not how the show opens. They get to that part, but they start with a different opener. And I actually thought that was pretty good. I like seeing it, and I like seeing the environments. They do a good job with the environments. The actor, actually, there's how to put this? The actors I feel like are closest to the original that remind me of from like this fun screen. I actually think Zuko is actually the best actor of the group. He hits the character the best when he's allowed to be the full character. So when he's doing the like fumbly, like doesn't know what to do in this moment kind of energy, he actually got that to me for me. But there's so many parts of his character written out at times that I'm just like,
of Zuko or Sokka?
Sorry, Sokka. I'm thinking of Sokka. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. That fundamentally changes that, but like, okay, I'm with you now. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You guys know how many podcast episodes? How good am I with names?
I know.
I'm like, okay.
You ain't worse than me.
the one with the boomerang.
Right.
So, it bothered me when we got to the scene related to his lack of sexism, because it just felt like there was nothing to do. It felt like there was an interaction missing. And because I know, but it's also kind of like we don't have enough development between these two people to like why things are going to go the way that they're going to go. So and there's a moment where like the Kyoshi warrior is making a statement, and it doesn't have as much weight since there's no, it's like posturing for no reason.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the other point. You guys were right about something. You guys were right about something that I have to agree with at this point. I think this show does a good job, or good enough job, at bringing people to the animated series who haven't seen it, potentially. It does open things up, and it's close enough. Like, if you come to me and you're like, yo, I love that Death Note, let me go watch the anime. Like, you watching two completely different shows. They're not related, okay? This is close enough, okay? This is like when someone tells you a story but they don't get all the details right, and you go and then you go find out the truth from the grandpa at the barbecue, and then you get the real details. You're like, oh, okay, he missed some stuff. This is like how that kind of lays out, where it's just like there's a lot of overlap visually, and it's just missing the heart. It's just missing the heart because they're writing too many things out, and the things that are probably absolutely different are not like super things that would stand out to me. And obviously the real show is longer. So yeah, it's visually good. It's missing the heart. It's going to bring people to Avatar, and I can be happy about that. That's where I stand.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So for my initial reactions, and again, this is just the first 2 episodes. Everything I feared did come true. However, it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There are, if I'm being fair and leaving nostalgia out of it, there are some interesting changes that they've made. If they wanted to make things a little bit more mature, so I think they had some good ideas on how to do that. Like Darcy said, the sets and the graphics are a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I initially didn't like the earthbending, but that grew on me. The airbending at times was weird, but then got pretty solid. Firebending is consistent, I would say. I think they know how to do firebending, but then again, firebending has been used in film a lot more than water, earth, and air have ever been used on a regular basis. So it could be trying to invent a lot of stuff, but with fire, it's pretty solid way of doing it. I'm trying to think of other positives. They are going about the story in interesting ways, as in they're trying to give different perspectives, which I also appreciate. And yeah, that's pretty much all I could really say. I would say some of the actors are doing a pretty good job with, Uncle Iroh is being done well, and Commander Zhao, and sometimes Monk Gyatso. That's about it. So I'm going to start leading into the negatives now. Again, not as bad as I thought it would be. It's not like Death Note. This is not something you're watching and oh my god, this is I can't watch this. This is not at the level of The Last Airbender either. Now, granted, I'm talking about the actual lowest of the low here, so maybe not the best line, but it's good that they didn't hit the ground. However, this show suffers from acting and line delivery and some fairly poor direction at times. The kids are by far the worst part of the show. Unfortunately, they are the main stars. These kids, I don't blame them for this. They are very much have no, they don't know what they're doing. And they're doing what they're told to do, but there's no life in their in their acting. It's just like they're reading off scripts that are being held in front of them while they're like behind, like in front of the camera, and like they're holding the scripts behind the camera so that they can like read it out. It's that level. And these are kids. Like I don't want to like harp on them. It's probably their very first acting job ever. So it's kind of like, okay. Now, I agree with Darcy. Sokka has some life to him on occasion, but it's, again, on occasion. Zuko, the same thing. He can occasionally do some good line delivery, but he's like working right next to Paul Sun-hyung Lee. So it's like he has a good scene partner. But Katara and Aang, like they have next to no hope. I haven't seen a single scene that I've liked with them or a single dialogue that I've liked with them. And to be honest, the direction is like I've just looked it up, and the director for the first 2 episodes is the same one. So naturally, the problems with it come in the next episode. So I'm hoping, because like basically every 2 episodes is directed by the same person. So I'm hoping that one of the other 3 directors will be better and will be able to get a better performance from the children, or at least a better line delivery. And in terms of their action sequences, the children are the ones who are by far the most awkward. Again, makes sense. I'm not blaming the children for this. I'm blaming the director for this. And this had potential, which is a little sad to see go down this way, but the potential isn't going great. So yeah, also the costume and makeup is not the best. Like I thought, based off our pictures that we'd seen, that they would be a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it, more they feel more lived in. These feel like really pristine, really nice looking cosplays that are like a really good quality, but like for actual like production, it feels like they kind of phoned it in with the materials. Like it's kind of like you would expect them to have good materials. Not that cosplay has bad materials. It's just that you work with what you can afford or what you can get. A production should be able to get at least authentic stuff. And these costumes don't feel authentic. They feel like they're just trying to look like something else. So I'm giving this a 5 out of 10 in the 2 episodes that I've seen. Again, I don't blame the actors for this. I blame the directors. I'm kind of hoping that the next couple of episodes with a different director will be different and have a better story, but or I should say a better execution of the story. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. We lost Darcy. So Tactix, based off these initial reactions, early reviews of the first 2 and a bit episodes of Avatar, what are your excitement levels for checking this out?
Y'all got me really excited to watch this now.
Mm-hmm,
if I'm being honest.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, in all seriousness, I'm still gonna check it out despite the negative comments that you guys made about it, because I just I'm for my own personal curiosity, I just want to see for myself, because originally watching the animated show, that was a rough start for me as well. Like even when I saw the trailers, it was super campy. But you know, the show eventually grew on me, and there was a lot of depth, and it became a beloved show for myself as well as many others who have tuned in and watched the show. So I'm hoping that this can kind of follow in that same vein, because I know that you guys haven't really finished the season yet, so there's still potential for it to grow. So hopefully it kind of picks up steam and like it gets better as the show progresses.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it doesn't, then it just kind of goes to show that, you know, live action, there's some properties that just don't work when you try to develop them into a live action iteration. Like A very weird example of this is like Simpsons or like Family Guy. I don't see how something like that would work in a live action setting. Like, you know,
Yeah.
we just grown so accustomed to the animation that it doesn't need to be touched in that regard. And maybe that's the case with Avatar, right? In terms of the costumes, I understand what you're saying about like how they look super pristine and like not very well worn out in terms of that time. I mean, for me, it's just kind of like I'm kind of chalking it up to like if you ever sat down and watched like a live action musical where like the costumes are very like, you know, very pristine and very proper and whatnot.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we got like more of like a realistic costume design in M. Night Shyamalan's version, and that movie was ass. And so for this, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, at least they look the part. Yes, because it's live action, it kind of takes you out of it because it's like, yeah, it's
Fair.
very, very perfect. But they at least all look the part. They all dress
Fair.
accurately to the show. So for me, that even though I haven't seen it hasn't really bothered me.
Okay, so on that exact front, there is one thing that honestly I can't get past. Zuko's scar.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the discoloration on his eye changes from scene to scene in terms of like the severity.
Mm-hmm.
But like, let's say overall, it mostly looks like he forgot to put suntan lotion on his eye and put it on everywhere else.
You don't know. Maybe he's using some kind of special cream, to dress it up a little bit. You don't know.
It looks like a bad burn when you're out in the beach, but on your freaking eye. And I'm just
he probably has some super strong polysporin. You don't know what he's using, bro. Like,
okay,
you don't know what he's using, man. Like,
I'm just like, I was like, why is it darker now? Why is it lighter now? Why is it just a burn? Like, where's the burn? It's supposed to be a burn, like a second-degree burn.
Okay, but in terms of like the actual storyline, though, like like how authentic is it or how accurate is the depiction?
I would say it's about So, do you remember we talked about Cowboy Bebop, and I was like, this is just like a lame attempt.
Yeah,
this is just above that because like they are going through the story, they are trying to update it. But the thing is, they're still following the same story and they're making changes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Other times I'm like, why did they do that? But not in like a how dare they do that. More like but why did they do that? Like for a very, very small example, in the first episode when Zuko is training and Uncle Iroh is watching, in the first episode of the animated series, Zuko was learning from Iroh. Iroh was like, no. You're focusing too much on the muscle. You're not focusing on the breath. And like he's like, do it again. In this, he's like, good job. Now have some tea. And I was like, okay.
I don't know, man. Honestly, I think there's something about anime as a whole, for most animes anyway, that I feel is just so hard to translate into live action.
Agreed. I'm giving this a little bit of room, and that's why like this example, I'm not saying is a bad choice.
Yeah.
But I was like, it leaves me wondering, why did they make that change? Now, with Darcy's example regarding Sokka's change, that I feel was a legitimate, unnecessary change because it took out a character development moment, and also it made the interaction with him and Suki kind of random. Like he said, it's like he's making they're both having a conversation that's making a point, but like, why was that point being made? There's no setup for it. Other choices, like for example, the opening 10 minutes of episode 1 are actually interesting because it's like, hey, we're actually not like it's completely made up, completely new content, nothing from the original series, and you're just like, that's interesting. It's dark. It's a little dark as well, and you're just like, okay, like there are a couple of changes a couple narrative choices I might have done, but at the same time, it wasn't a bad opening. And I was like, okay. And then the rest of the episode happened. I was like, okay. So I would say it's about 80% or 85% of the story being kept. And 20 to 15% of changes to kind of make it more like its own thing, but at the same time make it darker and more modern. Like I saw someone on TikTok saying, like I don't know what he's referring to, but they were saying, I like the change that they did with Firelord Ozai. Now in my mind, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen him yet, so like I've seen him, but like I haven't like seen him do anything. And I'm just like, okay, I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm going to keep going unless like my partner and I are just like, we can't do this anymore. But it's not giving me. It's not at One Piece adaptation level, but it's. I can't believe I'm going to say this. It's not at the ends of like. It's not the Last Airbender level. It's not quite at what you call it, Death Note's level. But
did you watch One Piece, the anime?
I watched a couple episodes, but I haven't actually watched it. But like the live action adaptation, I knew was referencing stuff, but it's not a bad show. This has weaknesses that come from the direction and from the actors. I don't blame the actors. It's not their fault. It's their kids. It's their first introduction to like Hollywood. And we've seen kids do really good jobs, like Stranger Things, for example, or Game of Thrones. Kids can be good actors. I blame the directors in this situation because they're not like the kids have no life in their performance. And I'm like, I'm really hoping this changes as the show goes on.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay.
I am interested to see what the changes are. I didn't think I would say that, but some of the changes I'm just like, let's just say so far in the first 2 episodes, some of the changes are not terrible. And so therefore I have nothing to like criticize. Welcome back, Darcy.
Thank you. I was having some serious amount of technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a story for you guys after the podcast.
Okay.
I heard a lot what you said, though. I've been listening for a while. I just haven't.
I'm glad.
I didn't have a camera. Here's my other camera. It's not working.
Okay. Well, the good news is hopefully by next week, all 3 of us would have watched at least the first 3 episodes at the very least. Because like Darcy, as you've probably heard, Tactix is not dissuaded from watching this show.
That's good in many ways. I will say if you only make it through 3 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm also game to hear your review as well.
Yes.
No, I think you'll make it through more if you're not dissuaded at this point. So,
But to answer your question, Darcy, I truly believe that this will have a lot of people interested in watching the animated series, because if they enjoy this, but like, oh, it was fun, but like it could have been better. They'll be like, well, have you watched the animated series? It's like, oh, I'll check it out. And then they watch it, but like, damn.
Yeah, I definitely think that there is going to be a chance. But at the same time, I had the other thought of like, what if people, because there are people that want like depth, right? They want the nuance of the character. But there's some people who want things to be more expedited. And will some of those people watch the show and feel it's slow? And then be like, nah, I like the show, the Netflix live adaptation more because of the pacing. And, like because some people are like, how to put this? Some people only watch like action films and more like not that deeper films. I'm not saying all people, just some people. And so I just kind of wonder if there's going to be like a bunch of people. It's still good no matter what. Like a bunch of people rush towards the property. And then, some people be like, nah, Netflix is better. Because I just know someone's gonna go to me at one point and be like, "No, I think the Netflix Avatar: Last Airbender is better." I'm gonna be like, god damn.
Okay, well, actually, that's an interesting question. T, from your perspective, because I know you've watched the entire series and you've also watched Korra, so you've kind of seen like from beginning to end it more recently than I have. So I'm kind of contaminated in my opinion. when you first watched Avatar the first season, and you even admitted that you were having trouble with it, did you find that the action was wanting?
Wanting? What do you mean?
Like, was it lacking in any like significance or epicness?
The action? I mean, it's been so long since I've seen it. I wouldn't say so. I don't think that's what deterred me initially. I think for me, it just came off as a very campy show initially in the first couple of episodes, and it took me a while to really kind of immerse myself in what was happening. Because before you had told me to watch it, I tried watching the first episode like a long time ago prior to. And I was just like, yeah, no. After the first episode, I couldn't even get to the first episode. I was like, this shit ain't for me. And then, you know, you and I became friends along with Darcy, and you guys were always talking about it. And I think, Umar, you were the one who was just like, yeah, just check it out. Trust me, it gets better. So I gave it another try, and you were right. It does get better. And so, yeah, I thought there was a good amount of action. But I found Korra had more action overall.
Yeah.
But Avatar, the Last Airbender, was a much more enriched story. I feel like it was more, and I think that was partially because the way they set up Korra was like each season was self-contained.
Yeah,
theme.
which I felt worked against them.
Yeah, whereas Avatar, it was like spread out over 3 consecutive seasons, and it was all for one ultimate goal. So you were very much invested and wanted to see the end result of what was going to happen in the entire series. So it kept you on your toes in that regard, because they basically from the get-go set up the fact that Aang was going to be this prophet, right? That was going to save the entire world or save the entire community and things of that nature. So you were very much invested in his storyline and wanted to see more. So I think that's kind of what captivated me more so than the actual action itself. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
It does. The only reason I was asking, because for me, I always focus on both the action and also because the thing is, like, I saw this. It was so long ago. Like, I can't remember my feeling of the magic of watching it for the first time. Like, I've watched it so many times since then.
So here's the thing, and this is kind of what I was alluding to with how certain properties don't translate well in live action. I don't think we've seen it yet, especially in anime, where you take an anime property and you try to translate it to live action. It definitely misses that essence, that magic that we have and that we love when we watch these animated movies, right? It's almost akin to, like, I mean, they're starting to kind of figure things out with like that of and this is not anime, but it's animation, in that of like Super Mario Brothers and the Sonic movies, where it's like it has a nostalgia factor built in, where you're like, oh man, like this reminds me of like when I played this game on this level and whatnot. I think they need to cultivate something for that, some sort of, I don't know if it's nostalgia is what you would call it, but they need to capture that same kind of essence. And if they're going to revamp it the way they did with Sonic and Super Mario Brothers, they need to find a way to like take that essence and that magic from anime and have it somehow translate into live action. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. And it sounds like in your case, that's the issue with this live action movie or this live action show.
Honestly, at present, the worst aspect of the series has been the actors for me.
Mm-hmm.
If they had better actors, or if the director was doing a better job giving some life to these children's performances, I wouldn't have as much of a problem. But like the line delivery of these children is terrible sometimes. Like Darcy, how he fell back in his chair. I was doing that, and like my partner was also like, "Ooh," but at the same time, she was laughing at me, and she was more entertained by my reaction than the actual show.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, that's a common theme.
Yeah, agreed, but like,
you know, I'm that's a good place to be. It's like, this isn't good content, but you are. So
like, yeah, I like the ideas I feel had they gotten Brian and all of them to be in charge and gotten more, like, I want to look into these directors to see like just how much actual work they've done. I saw like the guy who did the first 2 episodes. He's done a whole bunch of CW shows. That doesn't surprise me in terms of what I'm watching in the first 2 episodes.
That is accurate.
Yes.
CW is a great way to summarize what this feels like. Oh, that explains everything.
I literally just read it right now, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Tactics, that's all you need to know. It's Avatar. CW style.
Yeah.
Now you know when you get exactly what you're getting into.
Yeah, and people like the CW, so like good for them. But like for other people, it's like,
who are these people?
Yeah,
because like CW is like non-existent right now, bro. There's
they've had to cancel all their shows. Or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but like hold on. Arrow went on for a long time. Flash went on for a long time.
But where are they at now?
Supergirl went for a long time.
Where are they at now, though?
Let's check the records on this. Okay, let's check the records real quick. Okay. See, CW's biggest problem has been when they write the story. Because what happens with the story is season 1 sets up a problem. Season 2 expands kind of on that problem, but repeats it. Season 3 repeats the same problem. Season 4 plus is the season 1 all over again, as if it didn't happen. And that's what they do. Like, who has Superman fought every fucking season in the show? Himself. Literally the last 2 seasons, he's literally been fighting his actual self in a mirror reverse of him. So, like, that's all CW does. At least with this one, someone wrote a map for all the seasons, and they just have to try to follow it. Okay.
Yeah.
I got triggered there. Okay.
No. You like appropriately so. I got triggered. I'm just trying to keep it on the wraps. I'm glad you got to release what I was feeling because like we got some comments going on. Like Jimmy's like, I've seen better acting on CW. He's not entirely wrong. Like sometimes CW can do a good performance or a good episode here and there. I haven't like there are moments in Avatar that are actually like, oh, that's interesting, and then they go away. And I'm like, oh, then the children come back. And like Elliot is like talking about like Smallville all over again. I mean, first season of Smallville, back in the day, I was enjoying it, but that was until I realized, this is not going great. And like this show kind of has that element to it. And I'm just like, you have quality, you have a roadmap. Yeah. Why aren't you doing anything with these actors to get to it?
Yeah. By the way, Umar, for Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference, I just realized I felt like Captain Holt there. We remember when he had the conversation about dentists and who are doctors.
Apparently, that's a trigger for me.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah, well, it was like dentists and like the different. Oh yeah, no, that like doctors are co-opting PhDs.
Yeah,
like he just lost it on Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah,
that was a great episode.
Yeah, that's how I felt right now. Anyways,
all right. I think we've sufficiently covered this. So hopefully by next week, we'll Darcy and I will have gotten further in the series, and Tactix would have checked out the series, and we will give a more spoilery discussion. So moving on to our next topic, which is going to be something that is both hurtful and hopeful. So news broke out this week about a concept art pitch to Warner Brothers. Now, the people who had worked in the art department on let me just check, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and also Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse went to Warner Brothers, got a meeting, even though they were told repeatedly that this would be a no to their proposal. But they had brought out concept art for an animated Batman Beyond movie. And the answer was still no. However, by the end of the meeting, instead of being a hard, never going to happen, it turned into a maybe we'll see what happens. We'll see how this thing goes. Now, having looked at the concept art and also understandably being desperate for a proper adaptation of the Batman Beyond animated series, which is Batman in the future, or I'd say a new Batman in the future. This concept art gave me some hope. Warner Brothers' reaction pissed me the fuck off.
Yeah.
So I wanted to...
Umar,
yes.
just to clarify, question here. Is this pre-James Gunn Warner Brothers or current James Gunn Warner Brothers?
Ooh, that is a good question. I want to find out.
I got the feeling that it's pre, because I think I read somewhere they said that they haven't got a chance to talk to James Gunn yet. They've been trying to go up the ladder, and I thought that them releasing this was their chance to try to get it in front of him.
Yes, so we have been pitching our way up the company, hoping to get to James Gunn, but for now it hasn't happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just want to be clear. Like the old DC Warner Brothers management completely outright rejected and went to a maybe, and they haven't got a chance to see the man who may give this an approval.
Exactly. So I wanted to, well, it is very clear about my tone and how I describe this, how I feel about this, but I wanted to hear what my bros have to think about this. So T, what are your thoughts on, first of all, what are your thoughts on the concept art itself? And secondly, what are your thoughts on Warner Brothers' response to it?
You know, I love this, everything about this. I've been so excited for this for so long. You know, like it's no secret that I've wanted a Batman Beyond property to come to life in some capacity for a very long time, and I'm calling it right now. I think this is going to happen. I think James Gunn is going to greenlight this, because why not, right? I look at all the attention it's getting right now. This is giving me like leaked Deadpool test footage vibes all over again. And I think James Gunn is going to be, well, because the thing is, they already had plans for a Batman Beyond project to happen in the works in the future, with Michael Keaton attached to play Old Man Batman. And then obviously, actually, that was actually predicated on the success of
the Flash.
Well, we all know how that went. So
Darcy.
So yeah. So Darcy pretty much said it. So we all know how that went, right? So they scrapped it, but now because this is resurfacing, or this is coming to light, I think James Gunn is going to look at this and be like, okay, there's money to be made here. Obviously, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did extremely well. They're making bank. Like, let's do the same thing for DC. And Darcy also mentioned this a couple weeks ago, how, you know, they're making plans to do like Elseworld stories, or at least James Gunn has the intention of doing Elseworld stories. So this just makes sense. So I'm calling it and saying that James Gunn is definitely going to see this, and he's going to be like, okay, after we figure out our situation with Batman Brave and the Bold, we're going to get onto this Batman Beyond story as an Elseworld thing. Maybe even they might even get Michael Keaton. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's ever done an animated movie. I don't know if it's going to be worth it for him to do that, but
he's so talented, he could easily do voice acting. I don't think that's a problem.
No, well, if he wants to, that's the question. Like,
Gotcha.
would he actually want to do an animated thing, or does he feel like that's beneath him?
He doesn't strike me as a guy who would think like that'd be beneath him, especially.
Yeah.
He did Beetlejuice, and
he's coming back for Beetlejuice.
Exactly. And
yeah, but that's also because he loves working with Tim Burton.
Okay, fine. But like I still, again, I feel he should be, it won't be a hard sell to get him to come back for this.
So to answer your question, the man does not have a problem doing voice work. I'm on his IMDb searching the word voice. He has 16 different properties, including Minions.
Really?
Yeah. Michael Keaton, he's been in the Call of Duty video game. He's done Toy Story Tunes, Hawaiian Vacation. He's done Cars, Race-O-Rama, which is a video game. Multiple Cars stuff. Gary the Rat. He played Jerry Andrews. King of the Hill. He was a character on King of the Hill. That
Right.
Good point,
TV show.
Elliot. Good point.
Oh yeah, he's
okay.
also a comedian, isn't he?
Yeah, he started off as a comedian.
Right.
So yeah, I see absolutely no hindrance of that. And in a way, he's if he did the voice acting for this, he's like the closest thing to the OG. The name just slipped my mind right now.
Kevin Conroy. Yeah, because
thank you.
Well, yeah,
Elliot's talking about it in the chat right now.
So,
yeah.
So to Elliot's point, I agree. Like Kevin is the OG, and like to hear another version of the Batman voice that's not Kevin Conroy is going to feel very jarring. But like, who else? Like, I feel like Michael Keaton would be the next best bet. I mean, he doesn't have a distinct voice per se, but the fact that like he was going to be Old Man Bruce in a live action version of Batman Beyond, like I can't see anyone else picking up the mantle that would hold the same amount of weight as him.
Michael Keaton is a very distinguished actor in his own right. He also has, now that he's aged, a very good, strong voice, and this is coming from his most recent performances. Now, I think that comparing to Kevin Conroy is almost an unfair task because it's like the voice that all of us have for him. God, that's beautiful.
Such a good shot.
Yeah, so for those of you on the podcast, we're actually showcasing the art that was the concept art that was released, and it is quite beautiful. But going back to my point, I think just actually hold on, Darcy, what are your thoughts? Because like we kind of like skipped you up.
Oh, absolutely. The second you guys posted this in the chat, and I saw it, I went right to the Twitter post that this was associated with, and I wrote, "Take my money bags." Take my money. I just want to put a tweet out there, keep that popularity tree going so that it gets all this web to James Gunn. Absolutely. This is absolutely the best DC property to do that of this Into the Spider-Verse. It has both the natural aesthetic to actually look appropriate for this, having that kind of like animated style by those individuals, as well as I think it's also one of the hardest properties to adapt into live action. Yes, it's possible, but I feel like it would end up feeling either very nanotech-ish, like somebody might go that route with doing a 3D animated suit, which might not be the greatest, or it might end up being overly practical and might look amazing, but it might end up like we've seen some really cool like CGI ideas for what or concept art for what the Batman Beyond would look like in a practical suit. But I think doing this as animated would just hit the landing, stick it way better. And these guys have already shown that they know what they're doing, and I think it would go to a completely different level. And I think the one thing that could be really good about this is that I think it could be Into the Spider-Verse, but a little bit more adult, like a little bit more towards the, I'm not saying rated R, but like more mature area. And I think that would just be really fantastic. And I'm not trying to make it like hardcore, like it's not Deadpool or nothing like that, but just I think there's a little, like it's a little bit older audience it could capture in its tone, and I think that would be fantastic. And we've already proven like Into the Spider-Verse and that series has already opened up the audience that adults are watching it. It's not a kids thing anymore. So
yeah, that was gonna be my point, because like Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, none of them like they weren't kid shows. Like people were getting shot in these things.
But I think more so the subject matter, because Terry McGinnis is much older than
he's about a year old, like if that, for Miles, because they're both high schoolers.
Yeah, no, that's true.
What? Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Terry went to high school. That like he was 16 when he met Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It is true, but there still is a tone in that story.
Gotham is different than New York because Gotham is a lot more fucked up.
Yeah, it is. And like especially when you go back to like the Amanda Waller and how she created him part of the storyline, like that alone like is a much more mature topic. And I'm not saying that like Miles Morales' story is by any means immature, right?
I hear you.
It's just I feel like the action and the brutality that can happen in this could just be that little bit more that makes it less of a copy, right? Because it just gives it that little bit of difference where everyone wants to see it, and then you're like, oh, is it going to be the same? And then they show you a scene where it's Batman. There's like some darkness that you don't have with the Spider-Man franchise, where he's like coming out of the dark, for instance, and the fight scenes are a little bit harder. And I think it just would be, I could just feel it.
Yeah. So for me, like, so Jimmy in a private chat, he basically, when this news broke, he basically, his one thing was, "Do it, you cowards." Honestly, that is exactly how I feel. Now, Jimmy's also saying in the chat, I forgot who it was, but there was a voice actor who actually sounded 99% like Conroy. I remember that too. I think was that the Batman versus the Turtles movie? Because like for the most part of that film, I was not sure if it was Kevin Conroy voicing it or not. But anyway, so in my opinion, this should be done. This is a no, in my brain, a no-brainer. However, I do see what you mean, Darcy, about doing it like because the thing is, like, Terry, even Batman Beyond as a show in itself, it wasn't a funny show. It wasn't like, there were episodes that were more lighthearted because they could do like a high school version of it, but like that was made for kids. If you're going to appeal to the audience of Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, it is shown that darker, more intense, or even like Spider-Man is comedic because he's making comments. Maybot's right. It's cheeky, not funny. Yes, because he's being sarcastic, there's wit involved. There's quips, so that naturally makes someone chuckle a little bit. But it's because he's trying to lighten up a dark situation, like he's going up against an adult. Batman Beyond wasn't like, Terry was a punk who was agitating his opponent. And I see that as darker in tone. So I now see what you're referring to, Darcy. But a live action adaptation has risks involved. Now, granted, we have the technology for it because, like Black Panther and Iron Man have proven like we can do suits pretty well. But Batman Beyond has it has to have a more personable face. Yeah. And that's hard to do. I mean, I really loved Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Jimmy found the guy. It's Troy Baker. It was the voice for Batman versus TMNT.
Yeah. I
still want Michael Keaton. I still want Michael Keaton, but that's just me.
I think Michael Keaton's name on the bill would help sell the show.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm all for it. And yeah, I just like, where's my money? Okay, let me give you some money right now. Let's get the show going.
And honestly, the way online, I haven't seen anyone saying this is a bad idea. Just like when, like you were saying, Tactix, when they dropped the Deadpool leaked footage, everyone was like, "Where the people were saying, do it, you cowards! Here's my money!" All that sort of shit. This had a similar reaction, so I'm with you on this. I'm kind of hoping that James Gunn has now heard about this. He's like, "I'm sorry, they've been wanting to meet me, and you guys have said no."
Yeah, exactly. This is perfect Elseworlds content, and
100%.
And like I was saying this in another group chat with us, with like more bros in it, is that like I have not been excited for DC animated nothing for a minute. Like there's no movies that they put out.
The ball, man.
I just like and even when they're doing better, like the last one that came out, I was like Tactix and I were both like, we're bored. Like I watched it and I was like, fell asleep midway through, and I woke up and I was like, all right.
The Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, I don't know which one. I just fell asleep, bro. It's just not it. It's just not it. And like we need something new, and like this would set a whole different playing field for like pushing the limit in the DC side of things. So, like, just do it, you cowards. Like, let's go.
Yeah, 100%. All right, moving on to our next topic. Now, the next topic is going to be taken over by my bros because I have not seen this yet. And so in many ways, they're going to be pitching me this show. Howard. So Amazon's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It has been released, I think, on February 2nd. It stars Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. It was created by Francesca Sloan and Donald Glover. And it is, well, actually, I'm going to leave it there because I don't know what it is. So, Darcy, take it from here, man. What are your spoiler-free reviews of Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Definitely a must-watch show. This show, I loved it. My partner and I sat down. We watched like 3 episodes the first night. Picked it up and I think watched the last 5 the next time we sat down. That tells you enough, right? And they're not short episodes. They're like 40 minutes, an hour long kind of deal.
Okay.
I love it. And it's a departure in many ways from the Mr. and Smith movie. But I never watched it going like, oh, I need it to be more tonally like that. I actually, not at all. Because what I like about this is, and I'm trying to be spoiler free here, but it's like they sat down and they go, the Mr. and Smith concept is really interesting. And would be really interesting to blend this idea of 2 agents who have to work together, but not so much they don't know that they're agents, but what if they did? And what if they were in their own world, kind of like a John Wick world? And I'll give you the light premise.
So they're like the agency put them together.
Yes. And they know
and their cover is that they're a married couple.
Their cover is that they're Mr. and Miss Smith, and every there are many Mr. and Mrs. Smiths in this world of very different variety, and they have to execute on missions together, and you're going on the exploration with them as they go in that pursuit, and goes right from the very beginning where they barely know what the fuck they're doing to when they are far more masterful at what they're doing.
Okay,
but these 2 are always seem to be not fully in the loop, and it seems to be that the agency, which is the most ambiguous thing, which is part of the allure, are not telling them everything on purpose. And I love it. And I love it also because I'm sitting there watching it, and we get to this scene, my partner and I, and they order coffee and tea for on the first mission, and she orders the coffee black. I think it was black, right? And he orders tea, and they put it down, and they put it down the wrong person, and their reaction to how they put it down, my partner was like, "Fuck, that's us." It was like who would tea us? And Tactix had messaged I think you guys would like it, and we're watching it. We're like, is it because he sees us in it? Because we see ourselves heavily in these characters.
Yep.
Because the way she is, my partner is more assertive and more can be sweet but aggressive, and it's like a cultural dynamic thing. And he's a lot more calm in a lot of the situations. He's a little more zen than I am in some ways, but doing a little more yoga, but I do animal flow, so it's very similar. And just the tone between them and their interactions, I was like, holy crap. And then there's stuff that she does where she acts really weird in their relationship, because they do a lot of building of the relationship dynamic, and not just the action. There's a lot in the relationship, and it feels like I'm like, yeah, there's some stuff that's very similar. There's stuff that they get to later on, where we're not like that now, but there might have been some of that in the past, right? But yeah, it hits, and it just really works. I just really love how they took the concept and they expanded on it, and they made it its own little universe. And the season finale, where is season 2? That shit needs to come now. Where is it? You don't leave a brother like that. You don't leave a brother like that. I'm out here.
I feel you. But if they end it too, I'm like,
I know.
I'm torn. I'm
know.
torn, but I'm like, that's a good ending.
I do hear you. Like it's just, and the one thing about this Umar, like for just prefacing getting into this show,
Yeah.
is that it's not like every episode is not continuous off the last. It's more like moments in time. So it's like I don't really know the time frame that we experience this, but it feels like we're with them for a year, but we're seeing them every couple of months, kind of a
Right.
deal. And everything always, which this is really good. It comes from David, sorry, not David, Donald Glover, in terms of his like style a lot, which I feel is influenced in here, is
Yeah.
that everything feels like it's real and living and in motion, and we just come in at this moment and it continues with us. We don't come in where it's like let's slowly introduce this thing. It's like no, this is just where this story starts. It starts here, we started at this moment, and we just keep moving. Stuff's happened before, stuff's happened before. We're not gonna like explain it, but I just like it because it doesn't feel like characters are stopping for the camera. The camera has to jump in at the right moment because this is actually happening in real life. Yeah, it's really good. Plus, it's like they also bring in great actors. Ron Perlman in this, I'm like, oh, he's gonna be so good. And he comes in and he's like nothing like I thought he was gonna be, but that makes him so much better. Like I just like he was not the character you were anticipating at all. And it just shows how good of an actor he is. He put himself out in the ways that he put himself out in this. So yeah, this is for me. Honestly, like I'm on like 4.5, 5.5 out of 10. Or sorry, 4.5. I was thinking of a rating out of 5. It's like a.
Oh my god! I was like, dude.
Sorry, no, this is like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 kind of deal for me.
The mind fuckery.
Yeah, no, I was saying. I know we normally do it at 10, and all of a sudden I just did it at a 5 in my brain. Yeah, no, this is absolutely solid. The actors just deliver. All the extra cast that comes in to do scenes and stuff like that, they all bring it wherever with whatever they're doing. And I definitely see this as if they continue the second season, that we're gonna get a whole lot of like just big names showing up in this to play small roles, because especially some of them, like there's another Mr. and Mr. Smith characters that they meet, and they really get to have fun with those characters. And so like I can see people just wanting to show up to play because you're acting on a high level, but you're also getting really to like play it up when you want to.
Yeah. So just before we go to Tactix, Maybot says, interestingly enough, her partner also and her also found their relationship relatable. Like she's saying, we would just look at each other and give each other cut eye, but lightheartedly. And she's like, all episodes were like 8 to 10, with the exception of the therapist episode. That one dragged.
Yeah, actually, one more note on that thought, because like as Maybot said those points, it made me think. It's like at the very beginning, these people get paired, and you immediately think, I don't know if these people are compatible. That changes fast on you, because these actors really bring it in a way where you're like, shit. And then I saw a comment of them later, and she, the actress who plays his wife, actually attended his real life wedding. So
okay,
yeah,
so
just
friends.
like yeah. And so it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, they built up like chemistry for like in a real way, not obviously like for real, but in a real way.
And he had the wedding in between shooting.
Oh, that explains exactly why she got invited.
Yeah, like because basically he was like they had a scheduled shoot day, and then they had like I think they had a 5-hour break in between.
Yeah.
And he just goes to his fiance. He's like, hey, do you just want to get married like today at this time? And she's like, all right, cool. And so they just ended up going and getting married, and then they went out for dinner after, and then he went back to shooting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember the comment from the actress who plays his wife in this. She said, "You're beautiful. Your wedding was really beautiful." And so it might have played at last minute, but they did a good job apparently. So.
Yeah. And I think she's dating. Isn't she dating Jack Quaid?
I know Maya Erskine's in a movie with Jack Quaid as like his love interest, but I didn't know they were actually dating. T, what did you think of all of this series?
Absolutely love the show. I'm a huge fan of Donald Glover, and I have been for a long time, ever since his Derek comedy days. So I'm most likely going to support anything this guy does, with the exception of the Solo movie. I haven't seen that yet, but in regards to the show, I love the show. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, mainly for the commentary and like the chemistry between these two actors, because they did a phenomenal job in depicting what most relationships are like. I mean, a lot of the conversations that they were having, I was sitting back and I was like, "Ooh, I've been there. I've definitely been there." But if you're going into this, and you're watching this current podcast and you're thinking, "Oh, like I don't know if I should watch this or not," and if you're going into it thinking or expecting it to be similar or a carbon copy of the movie, it's not by any stretch of the imagination. It's a completely different thing, like Darcy said. And it's more so of the like they're not these characters are not playing Mr. and Mrs. Smith from the movies. Like there's multiple agents or spies under that alias of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So there's a lot of them called Jane and John Smith, essentially. So it's more so. Do you guys ever remember the movie Triple X with Vin Diesel?
I didn't watch it, but I know of it. Yes.
Okay, so Triple X, in the first movie, it was basically he was considered to be Triple X, and then when they did the sequel, Triple X was just kind of like an alias that anyone could uphold, kind of like similar to like 007 or whatever.
Right.
So it's in the same vein or same fashion as that. So once you kind of get past that and you accept the notion that these two are completely different characters from the movie, you can go in with a fresh pair of eyes and just enjoy it for what it is, which is essentially what I did. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I love the chemistry. I love they have a lot of like pillow talk banter, which is really endearing. And it was really fun to just to be a fly on the wall and just see how they interact and how they play off each other. And you could tell in a lot of the scenes that there is definitely some ad lib and like improv going on there, which was so good. Because that's Donald's world, right? And I feel she was just kind of like riffing off of him, and like it just really worked. There was great emotional payoff because of their dynamics are so different. Like Darcy was alluding to earlier, where like Donald's character is more like John is more, he's more zen and he's more chill, and Jane is more like of the aggressor in a lot of ways, but also a little bit reserved in some instances. And so they often clash in that regard, not just in their marriage in terms of the relationship, but also on missions, and it progresses and it gets really messy as the episode or as the season goes on, which is obviously interesting. Don't go into this thinking that there's going to be a whole lot of action. The action is kind of like it's like an afterthought. Like there's not a whole lot of action that happens. Like when it does, it's pretty interesting, but that's not the main focal point of this show.
It's an anecdote.
Yeah. And so you're more so watching how the relationship unfolds, and like it's like answering the question like, oh, what if two spies who essentially met on like a spy version of Hinge, got together and are now like, that like that's pretty much what it is, right? So that is what really gripped me. And anyone who's in a relationship currently or has been in a relationship, like definitely watch the show. There's definitely something there for you. The only thing, and it's like a small thing, like this isn't even really a con. It's just like it's just one of those funny elements that kind of added more to the story, is that they're extremely incompetent. John more so. like I'm surprised that he's a spy, because it's like he does some certain shit where you're just like, how are you not dead? Like you're fucking this up royally right now, and I don't know how you're still living. But yeah, so in that regard, it was kind of like,
you know what though, that I think is part of it. And I think that there's going to be
100%. Yeah.
I think there's a reveal that's going to come later in the story in season 2 related to this, because I think that there's a level of like, we never understood how they got selected And I think the selection is kind of like experimentation of like putting
Totally.
like if they don't care, like put these people out to die and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And I think these two people only work because
Yeah.
the dynamic. And there is a thing in their selection that it shows you that I think that the system focuses more on their compatibility of being in a relationship than it does on their ability to actually be a spy. And I think that there's something to like this agency, which never gets explained, actually probably gets better results because they said something in there about it being higher results because of the two. Like there's somebody else who talks about this. I don't want to hint too much at it, but there's something to them working together that helps them go farther. Plus, they probably don't look like they're spies since they're always a couple out and about. But I think that there's something to if you can get the best two people together, they excel in a way that you can't otherwise because of that romance and that love that you develop for each other. So I think that their complete fuckery becomes, but through their love, ends up making them elite. And that's just like a really, which is also like if you think about that from like a relationship perspective, that like that gets you in a place right there.
Yeah.
And so like I think that there's just something magical about that like the thing that is that negative that you mentioned is actually a gem.
No, it's definitely not a negative. It's just like I think for people that are going in and they're expecting there to be like the same level of competency with Brad and Angelina's depiction of these characters in comparison to them, you're definitely not gonna get that. Like they feel very much like amateur spies, and it shows. Like it shows a lot. Like, but like it's not. It's like a step above what you would see from like 21 Jump Street, that level of competency. Like
in the beginning. In the beginning, but then it's like they change, and there's like they even you made a reference of 007 because like whatnot, they even refer to themselves by that. They're like it's like, oh, 007 can't be out here doing this, right? It's like seeing James Bond doing this, and you're like, they know what they are, you know?
So Maybot in the comments, she said a couple of interesting things. First, she says, "Can I just say hot neighbor?" I'm assuming you guys know what that reference is.
Yeah.
Second thing that it kind of reminded me of something that Tactix was saying. In the first episode, showed a Smith couple that was spiritual representations of Pitt and Jolie's Mr. and Mrs. Example: Jane's dress and boots, or John's soft caress of his partner's face. Homage.
Yeah.
Any like, do you guys resonate with that?
I didn't catch that initially, but yeah, that's very accurate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I don't remember the original movie to any significant degree, and I think that's one of the reasons why they have the opportunity to change so much, because I think a lot of people remember it but don't remember in detail, and so it gives that freedom.
Yeah.
Bro,
Darcy, the first time they used the truth serum.
Oh shit! I like how when they try to explain later, like oh, like it's like it was fine, like it went to plan, like it's like you fucked up. Stop downplaying it.
Yeah, but to Maybot's point about the part where they go to couples therapy, I actually like that episode, but mostly because like I've had conversations like that from that episode quite frequently, so it hits.
I like how it ends though.
Yeah.
You do what? Okay. Okay, let's go.
Okay, I will say you guys have just because I feel left out, but like also at the same time, you guys have sufficiently sold me on this series.
Honestly, it's good. I'm surprised. I would understand if someone was like sitting there and be like, you know what, this is kind of a boring show. And like I personally don't agree with the IMDb rating. I like I said, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Like,
what did IMDb give it?
They gave it a 6.7. But I understand. But granted, I understand it because, like, again, if you're looking at it from the perspective of I'm going into this hoping it's going to be a carbon copy of a lot of action, of the movie, and a lot of action, and it's just like spread out over a long duration of time because of 8 episodes, you're not going to get that. so you have to go in and you if you can appreciate Donald Glover's style, like it's very much akin to like Atlanta. Yeah, very much so. Similar to like just what Darcy said earlier, where it was like it's like all the episodes kind of are self-contained. Like they don't really build on top of each other until like maybe the very end. So it's very much like Donald Glover definitely has like his own style and his own flavor in terms of his creative vision, and it very much shows in this show. And I think that's part of the reason why I like it so much, because I love Atlanta and I love his style, and it's a really great show, man.
I you know what I want to know though, for the ratings, how many of those people are single and how many of those people are in relationships? Because if you separate those two groups, I think there might be a difference in the ratings.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting.
Because like, and on top of that, like, you know, relationships with some time and some depth, because there's stuff in here that's like, you've been through it, you ain't been through it, you might not look the same to you.
Yeah.
Oh, this scene? This scene? just that was brutal. But the way that they like look at each other, just like that would literally be that me and my partner right there. After that scene, it would just be like, and the way he's on the phone after, yeah.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Basically, just without spoiling.
No. I'm sold.
It's dope. It's dope. You go watch it.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it. I'm sold. All right.
Tonight. Watch it tonight.
I have to watch it with my partner, so like that will be when she's available.
Well, it comes before Avatar. Let me tell you that much.
All right. So moving on to our final topic of the evening. So, as we were discussing earlier on, CW has a Superman series called Superman and Lois. Now, we have covered that show. Actually, we stopped covering that show, and then because of a resurgence, we decided to go back to covering the show again. So, nonetheless, season 4 is currently being filmed, and there has been some news that's come out that season 4 will be the final season of Superman and Lois. It has officially been canceled. Now, the reason for this came out this past week. As apparently, James Gunn's Superman Legacy was indirectly the cause of Superman and Lois's run. The reason for this was they didn't want a competing Superman product in the marketplace. I think that's stupid, but I feel a lot of decisions when it comes to WB and also CW are stupid. So that's not really me changing my tune, and like I don't really have a lot of, how should I say, credibility to decision makings on CW. So let's go to my bros who are significantly less prejudiced of CW than I am. I am severely prejudiced against CW. Like,
okay,
I'm borderline like a racist son of a bitch. If CW was like a
going into a weird place, Umar, going to a weird place.
I do that with CW. Anyway, so T, let's come to you first, bro. What are your thoughts on the reason for canceling Superman and Lois?
I mean, I don't get it, because I mean, technically, don't we have 2 upcoming Batman, different versions of Batman
exactly
right now? Like, I mean, granted, we don't have the Brave and the Bold Batman yet, but isn't that the initial plan?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So yeah, I don't really understand why we can't have 2 Supermen. It like, and they've been doing this for forever. Like, even with when Smallville was around, they were like, everyone was waiting for Bruce Wayne to show up on that show in the span of 10 years, and it was because of the fact that Christopher Nolan had plans and actually executed those plans of doing his version of Batman. So we instead got Green Arrow on the show. So yeah, I don't understand why there's such a big uproar in regards to having 2 Supermen in rotation, right? It just doesn't really make any sense. But That being said, this show, I feel, and I mean, I think we're all in agreement that it's kind of lost its steam since the first season.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope it's a strong finish and they kind of quit while they're ahead. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know where else they can really go with this show at this point because I feel like they've run the course.
I feel they're going to kill off Tyler and let his son like take over.
By the way, I wouldn't call it quit while they're ahead. I say quit while they're catching up. trying to get back. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, as far as CW shows go, it's probably been the best one we've had so far.
Interesting. Yeah,
I would say that it's tolerable for me.
I would say Arrow had some really strong stuff and then fell off. Right?
Yeah.
After the Raja Ghul stuff, it fell off.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's with all CW shows. That always falls off.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Flash. Flash had a strong start and then tanked.
By the way, y'all just missed that pun. Y'all missed that pun. After the Raja Ghul stuff, Arrow fell off. Remember how? There you go.
Sorry, that went right over my head.
Yeah,
I didn't lay into it thick enough, but yeah, I had to bring it up. I'm gonna jump in with some of my points on this.
Please.
So, as much as what you guys are saying is logical, and generally I'm like partially to agree with you, I think I could understand why James Gunn would want to cancel this. And there's a couple of reasons. One, I think it's like an underperforming property, and like that's part of the reason. Like, I mean, in general, like while you're trying to build up the name of your thing and build up Superman as the thing, you don't want another thing confusing and pulling it down. But we make the argument about confusing. Well, what about Batman? I think that, I mean, the Matt Reeves movie, if not already successful, may not have come as soon as like we wouldn't get a Batman by Matt Reeves right now, potentially, until he set up the universe. But I think also the Matt Reeves Batman and the Batman we're going to get are very different, right? And I think that they're going to be so polarly different that might be less of a risk in James Gunn's eyes. And I think that this Superman is more closely resembling the Superman that we're going to get. I'm not saying the same, but like Umar, you have said many times, Tyler Hoechlin is doing a great job with this Superman. And what we're hoping to get from this new Superman is going to be like this, but better, right? And in terms of the overall story, right? But like delivering from the acting perspective in the same way. So I think that's like tonally very similar. If we were to have an Elseworld, like, or a show, if this show was like literally the Red Sun show, if it was a Red Sun show and they were so tonally different, then they might not be, there's no confusion there because you can tell it's an Elseworld property. Whereas this feels like it might overlap a lot. And I think that might be part of the decision process. Plus, it's just been an underperforming property, and like, maybe, you know, they've seen the storyline. It's going to be okay. Where do you keep going? Where do you keep pushing it? And if you keep pushing it, like, do you have to bring other characters from the CW back? And maybe there's a whole lot of contract stuff going on with CW, which probably is another part of it. Like, how much stuff do they have literally going on contractually with CW that it's like, it doesn't make sense to continue it also. So there's just a lot. I think it's just like, there's maybe overlap in tone. Probably a lot to do with contracts because that probably plays a huge factor, and it's just not a high performing property. Unlike, you know, say Matt Reeves, the Batman, I think that's just got all the right things working for it to continue going and not be as confusing.
I'm fine with the underperforming aspect, and also to kind of like rebrand properly. I don't think there is any data to support that. Now I do see what you mean about the repeating feel. Like if like Superman Legacy and also Superman and Lois had practically the same sort of approach, then it's like we're just doubling our efforts for no apparent reason. But like leaving that aside, I would say that like I don't see there's any data saying that if you have multiple, like a TV series and also a movie series that are separate, that they would inherently cancel each other out.
Yeah, no, I don't think there would be, but I think you need to be telling different stories or a really
Yes.
well thought out intertwined story. And I
Yes.
think that that's not going to be the scenario. It's not a completely different story in that it's pulling from a lot of the same notes, right? Probably, right?
Right.
Because this isn't very Elseworldy. Like Matt Reeves the Batman is very Elseworld compared to whatever
we'll get with Baver and Bold.
But like if you just think about like if you put Matt Reeves' the Batman up against Nolan's Batman at the same time, they're probably the closest two properties together. And yet I still wouldn't say like they're all these are the same kind of story. Like they're just different, right?
Yeah.
You know, you put Matt Reeves' the Batman up against like, you know, the old Batman, like, you know, the original Batman, not even close to the same tone. If they was happening at the same time, like you wouldn't, I mean, given that they, how could they, but you know, if they were happening at the same time, you wouldn't compare them. Right, you would definitely think that they're different, but yeah, two hopeful Superman at the same time with a lot of like similar things. Two stories about like Lois is going to be an important part of that story. She's an important part of this story. Like I just see that they're being like, yeah, this is not going to work well enough. I think it's going to confuse enough people to be like, what are we talking about?
Okay. All right. Well, like again, like I am not a huge fan of Superman and Lois, so like this is no skin off my back. I'm just like, cool, okay, but like I found that the reasoning to be odd, and also one that was predicated on no evidence and just fear on the studio side. However, I'm hoping that Elseworld films will, at the very least, provide some clarity of doing multiple different styles. Now, I will say that if they're like, it has to be different styles. It can't not be identical, because then it's like you're telling two different Superman stories at the same time that are almost like following the same route. Then what's the point? But like when we're talking about Superman Red Sun and a Superman Legacy, that's different.
Yeah.
So like that stuff I can get behind, but nonetheless, I feel that Warner Brothers is not known for making great choices. Like we're not even discussing Coyote and Acme, the movie that they scrapped that apparently was really good. It's like Acme versus Coyote. I can't remember its name off right on the top of my head, but anyway. So I am sad to see that Tyler is not getting more Superman time, but as I've said, we've gotten 4 seasons. We will be getting 4 seasons of him, and I'm happy for the resurgence of true Superman representation.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so I'm going to volley it to you, T, for our closing remarks.
All right. Well, this has been another edition of the Geeky Bros Podcast. We want to thank you guys once again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. I'm your boy Tactix.
Yo, just Darcy here.
This is Big Geek Umar. Live long and prosper, y'all. Please like, favorite, and subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday.
Why you always got to pose like that, bro?
Because I got to do something.
Just sit down, man.